Welcome to Sales User Training. I'm Brian Hayes, and I'll be your instructor. Now, I've done trainings like this with hundreds of different companies, helping salespeople that are new to Salesforce get up and running quickly. My goal here is to give you the most important information as quickly as possible so that you can use the tool better and it'll actually help you close more deals and be more effective. We're going to skip past all of the system admin stuff, all that customization stuff, and really just focus on what are the features and tricks that can help a salesperson be more effective within Salesforce. So the first thing I'm going to do is give you an overview of the interface and the main objects and features that are most relevant to a salesperson. Next thing we'll do is take a closer look at a record, and I'll point out all the different features and functions there that can be useful as you're pursuing deals and building relationships. And finally, we'll take a look at tasks and emails, because ultimately, a salesperson should be spending more time with customers rather than doing data entry into Salesforce. So let's start with an overview of the system. Now, I'm here in the Sales app, and we're looking at the home page here. One point to make as we get started is that so much of Salesforce can be customized. So your view in your company might be a little bit different than this, or maybe a lot different. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, it's one of the strengths of the platform is that it can be customized. So don't let that bother you, but the core objects, the main functions in Salesforce, pretty much the same for different companies. So here we are on the homepage. Ideally, this would be customized to give you a dashboard that's relevant to you, but there's a couple standard things that are useful to point out here. If you have any tasks that are due today, if you have any events that are due today, and any recent records that you may have viewed. Across the top of the screen, we have these different tabs. And these tabs are either objects or they're features within the system. And an object in Salesforce is just a type of record. So if you look at accounts and contacts, those are two different objects. Accounts represent companies and contacts represent people, oftentimes people within those companies. And there's some other objects here too, like campaigns or leads or opportunities. And there's a couple other things in here that are more features than records. A calendar is a good example of that. You don't really have a calendar record, but it's a nice way to, plot out events or tasks on a calendar view. Same thing with groups and chatter, and we'll talk a little bit about chatter later in the training. So the important thing is you got all these tabs across the top, which generally represent different types of records within your system, but this does not encompass everything that Salesforce can do. This is just a subset. And so these tabs are grouped into an app. And if you look in the upper left-hand corner, we can see that we're in the Sales app here. Yours probably says Sales, might say something different. And so an app in Salesforce is just a collection of these tabs. And the idea is we should only be surfacing to you guys the tabs, the features that are important for you in your job. So right next to the name of the app, Sales, is a little 3x3 grid. That's the app launcher. If you click on that, you can switch into different apps or different collections of tabs within the system. So if we switch into Service, you can see it's pretty similar, but it's simplified compared to the Sales app, at least in this case. And cases are the most important thing when it comes to Service. They don't typically need to worry about opportunities. That's a salesperson's concern. So if you click on that app launcher again in the upper left-hand corner, click View all the way at the bottom here, and you can see all of the apps that you have access to. And it depends on your user level and permissions, what apps you could log into and which ones you couldn't. So just pay attention to that. So if you log in one day and you find all your tabs are gone, or there's different tabs up there, you may have just switched into a different app without realizing it. So pay attention to the word in the upper left-hand corner, and just know that here in the app launcher, you can switch into different apps, different features and functional areas in Salesforce. Scroll down a little bit and you can see all items. This is essentially all of the possible tabs that you could have across the top of the screen. You can see there's a lot of them. And so we don't want these all to be represented on the top of the screen. It's just going to be too much stuff. It's going to be too hard to find what's really relevant. But this is a good window into some of the functionality that Salesforce has. It can do a ton of stuff, but depending on your job, only some of these things are going to be relevant to you. Okay, let's go back to the Sales app. Now let's talk about the most important objects within the system. So we already talked about accounts. Those are companies. We've got contacts. Those are people within those companies. And then we also have opportunities. An opportunity is a deal. Every opportunity is going to ultimately be closed, either closed won, hopefully, or closed lost. And every opportunity must be related to an account. So if you're selling to businesses, it would make sense that you've got a potential deal with them, say, this month. But let's say you're not able to close that deal this month. and they go with a competitor. Well, maybe a year from now, they'll realize what a terrible decision they made and they'll come back to you. At that point, you could create a new opportunity related to that company and then pursue them again and hopefully win them as a customer this time. So all opportunities must be related to accounts, and it's possible to have multiple opportunities related to just one account. A common mistake that people make when they're first using Salesforce is trying to use just one of these objects to represent all of the data related to their operations. But sales is a lot more complicated than that. We don't want an account record, a company, to represent everything. We don't have a bunch of information about the CEO on that account and a bunch of information about their status as a customer and the status of deals. It'll get too muddled too quickly and doesn't allow you to have multiple deals or multiple people related to one company. And so that's why we've got these different tabs, these different objects to represent different pieces of the process. So accounts are companies, contacts are people within those companies, opportunities are deals. The next object that's worth speaking about are leads. And this usually is a point of confusion because companies use the word lead in a lot of different ways. In Salesforce, a lead is a very specific thing, and it is a precursor to your accounts, contacts, and opportunities. So think of accounts, contacts, and opportunities as your core database. That's where you've got any potential deals, and you've got companies related to those deals, and you've got people related to those companies. You might even have partners listed as accounts, or people in the media that you might work with, or even competitors you could list as accounts. It's basically your highly qualified, highly understood database. Leads are for less qualified people. So imagine you go to a trade show and you get a stack of business cards from people because you've got a raffle going on. Well, you've got all these business cards. There's bound to be some really good leads in there, but you probably have some junk in there as well, and you don't know the difference yet until you start calling or emailing them to find out. Well, you don't want to upload them as accounts and contacts because you'd have to create two records. You got to create the company and you got to create the people within the company. And you don't even know if they're going to be in the ballpark of a potential prospect yet. They're not yet qualified. So that's where the lead object comes in handy. The lead object is sort of a holding place where you can upload all those business cards, you can call them, you can create follow-up tasks for yourself, and then if they are qualified, you then convert them. And converting them turns them into an account, a contact, and maybe an opportunity, if the time is right, all in one step. And we'll take a closer look at that a little bit later in the training. But remember, accounts, contacts, and opportunities, that's your core database. Accounts are companies, contacts are people within them, opportunities are deals. And leads is a separate bucket for unqualified people that could then convert into accounts and contacts and opportunities. Okay, let's take a closer look at a record. I'm going to click on the Accounts tab, and we'll click into just one of these accounts here. We've got Burlington Textiles Corporation of America. Now that we're looking at this record, in the upper left, you can see the name of it. We can see the name of the company. And then right beneath that, you've got any important information. And again, this is customizable depending on your company. Maybe you don't care about industry. Maybe you'd rather see the employee number there or something like that. And then we've got these tabs in the center where most of your information is. We've got related, details, and news. And on the right-hand side, we have activity and chatter. So let's start by talking about the details tab. The details tab here is going to show you all of the fields for that particular account. And these are just pieces of data. This is where you can save their phone number, their website, etc. And you can add a lot of custom fields here. For example, if you're working with startups, maybe one of the things you want to track is what series of funding they're at. Well, you could create a custom field, and that would be Series A, Series B, etc. And probably in your org, you've got some custom fields in there that are just specific to your company. But you as salespeople, you shouldn't have to worry about creating custom fields or messing with any of that. It's something that is better served by an admin on your team. So what you'll see here is all the structured data that you can add about this particular account. And if you click the pencil next to one of these fields, you can modify any of these field values. Change the phone number, update the address, etc. And then hit save once you've made your change. You can also click the drop-down arrow in the upper right-hand corner, and you should see an edit button up there. When you click edit, you get the same fields here that you can update, just a slightly different screen. And again, hitting save will save those changes. These are all the details about this company. If you click on related, what you'll see are all the related records to this company. One of the great things about databases is that you can relate different records to each other. And that's what we have here. We're looking at a company, but we can also see all of the people that work within that company. And that's where this list of contacts exists. We can also see any opportunities related to this company or cases. We could see notes, attachments, files, that kind of thing, as well as partners. And as you customize your system, you might find that there's other lists here that I'm not showing. Like maybe you have projects within your company, or perhaps you're using contracts or assets, those sorts of things. If they can be related to an account, you can have it show up here under this related list. On the right-hand side, we've got activity and chatter. Activity is where you can see a timeline of all of the emails and calls and tasks that you've had or other people in the company have had with this account or people within this account. And you can also create follow-up tasks for yourself and for other people. What we have across the top here is the task button, the log a call button, the event button, and then the email button. If I create a task, I can click on this button and you'll see it pops up in the lower right-hand corner. And I can say, reach out about new product. And I can put a due date on it. So let's say I'm going to do that tomorrow. And underneath that field, we've got a name. We can relate this task to a specific contact within the database. And it's already related to the account. It's already related to the account because we clicked the new task button on the account. So it's assuming that for us. It's already related to me. I own the task because I'm the one who created it. And the default status is not started. So if I hit save, you'll see it pop up right here. And in the timeline, that's going to be due tomorrow. But let's say I call them right now. I can click the log a call button, and it's a very similar process. The new log a call screen pops up, and I can say LVM, left voicemail, and then hit save. And there, this is automatically getting logged as well. A call and a task are really the same thing in the database. It's just when you click that button on the record, it's filling in some of those fields for you automatically because it's assuming you're logging call, it's a completed task, and you must have done that today. Now, maybe I didn't actually do it today. If that's the case, if I'm logging a call a day later, I can always click this drop-down button, click edit to change the date, or even hit this change date shortcut to take care of that. Same thing with this task. If I want to change this task, I can click the drop-down arrow, click edit, or hit change date here. Let's push it out for one more day. So call them on Saturday. Now that's been updated automatically. Whenever you want to complete that task, you can just check the box right here and it'll update itself to be completed. Creating tasks for other people is very similar. Hit the new task button, and then instead of just leaving my name in the assigned to field, you can change that and you can search for other users, other colleagues within the Salesforce system and assign a task to them. Creating new events is very similar. So this is more appropriate if you actually have a specific time and place that you're going to meet with somebody rather than just a to-do that's in the future. And then email here will actually send an email out of Salesforce. Here's our email pop-up in the lower right-hand corner. I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger so we can talk about some of the features here. When your company set up Salesforce, they could also get it to connect with either Office 365 or Gmail. If you're using either one of those tools, you can actually send an email from here and it'll send from your work account. It won't be coming from Salesforce, which is very convenient. It's a strong integration, but that's something that needs to be configured by an admin within Salesforce. A couple benefits of sending emails from Salesforce. Number one, the email's automatically going to be related to the account or the contact that you're on when you hit that button, just like when we created the task. Another benefit is you can use templates. I can hit this little plus button down in the lower left-hand corner and insert a template. Here's a template called Sales New Customer Email. I'll select that. And that just filled in all of the copy for me. Another benefit of sending an email from Salesforce is you can pull in information about that account or contact dynamically into your template. You can see at the bottom of this email, it says, best regards, Brian Hayes. Well, you can use all sorts of merge fields within an email template. You can insert the account name or any field value that you have on that record dynamically into the system. Here's another merge field where it says, hey, plus training at rotive.io. That's the email I've got for this training org, and it's being inserted into the body of the email. It can save you a ton of time, and it's one more reason to keep the data in Salesforce accurate. So when you send out these email templates, you're not spending too much time customizing them for each customer. I'm going to click send on this email, and then you'll see that email shows up in the timeline as well. So as anybody is working with this account, you can see all of that activity on the right-hand side, see who was the most recent person to reach out to them and bring them in on a deal if maybe they have a better relationship with somebody over at that company than you do. The last thing to take a look at on this record is Chatter. Chatter is an internal messaging tool for Salesforce. This allows you to create posts and to @mention different people within your company so you can have a conversation about a record. Most often, you'll see this being used on an opportunity where I could @mention, my manager and ask for approval on a discount. Or my manager can see an opportunity, @mention me, asking me a question about the deal or its status, and I can respond directly on the record. So here I'm just going to @mention an integration user and hit share. That posts that message to the record. That integration user would get an email so that they're notified of this message, or if they're in Salesforce, they'll see it show up in the little bell in the upper right-hand corner, and then they can respond directly to it. A lot of people ask, when should they use Microsoft Teams or Slack versus Chatter? There's a lot of nuances to that. Sometimes you only want to use one. Sometimes both can be useful. But what I've seen with Chatter is that it's most useful when you want to save a conversation on a record. Most of these conversations before Chatter were happening in email. So you've got something going back and forth, you've got collaboration happening, you're making a decision about a deal or a customer, and it's buried in email somewhere. If it's in Chatter here, then it's on that record. So a year from now, when the customer is up for renewal and you want to understand why you gave them such a good deal a year ago, you can just look in Chatter and you can see what that conversation was about and go from there without having to dig and search through email. The other use for Chatter is as a timeline of important changes. You can see before my post here about how are things going with this account, it says that I logged a call and left a voicemail. And before that, it says I created a task, reach out about a new product. So there's certain actions you can take on a record that will automatically post a little update to the Chatter feed. And you can even do that with different important fields. So a good example of this, again, is on an opportunity. If you change the close date from, say, 1 month to the next month, it'll make a little post here. And it'll say, somebody changed the close date from 1 month to another month. You can see that, you can comment on it, and there's this history of the record that is viewable, but just for the important details. You don't want every little change posting to the Chatter feed because it just becomes noise. But for the important stuff, it's helpful because you get a history of that record. You get a timeline of the changes, which makes it that much more valuable, instead of it just being a current snapshot of that record. So click on the Accounts tab here now, across the top. Whenever you click on one of these objects and you click on the tab, it's going to give you a list view. And the default list view is the recently viewed list view. You can see it here in the upper left. If you just logged into Salesforce for the first time, you haven't recently viewed anything, so this will be blank. But what you can do is click on it and you can change it to a different list view. You could click on All Accounts, for example, or any of these other list views that we've got created. This is really good if you're new to Salesforce because it's like working with a spreadsheet. You can see multiple records at one time, and you can even edit them directly in this list view. I can click the pencil here and say, actually, they're not in North Carolina, they're in Georgia. And you can update the state and hit save. And you can do that same thing for multiple records by clicking the box on the left-hand corner and then editing that field. For salespeople, I think working out of list views is one of the most effective ways to work in Salesforce. You can see multiple records, you can create custom filters, you can edit multiple records at the same time. You've got a lot of control, and you're not constantly waiting to click on a record for it to open and then hitting back and then clicking on another record and waiting for that to open, so on and so forth. List views are your friend, and I highly recommend that you spend some time with them and you create some list views of your own. So to create your own list view, there's a gear in the right-hand corner. These are your list view controls, and you can click New. It's the first option underneath it. And let's say I want to just see my California accounts. I'm going on a trip. Let me see those accounts so I can easily give them a call. So I'm going to call this CA Accounts. You can then choose to have this list be visible to everybody or just visible to yourself or visible to certain people within your org. If you're experimenting with something and it's only valuable to you, then leave it private. Leave it visible only to you. But if it's something that everybody else could benefit from, mark that second option so all users can see the list view. So now that I've created this list view, California Accounts, you can see we still have states in here that are not California. Because what we need to do now that we've created it is apply some filters. On the right-hand side, we've got this filters bar, and it's toggled with the little filters icon in the upper right. The default filter on it is to just show me my accounts, but I actually want to see all accounts, not just accounts that are owned by me, but owned by anybody. And then you can hit add filter and add as many filters as you'd like here. Once you hit add filter, you can choose what field you want to filter on. So you saw when we're looking at the account record, there's all those different fields, all those different data points. We can filter on any of them. So what I want to take a look at is the billing state. There's our billing state field, and I only want states that are equal to CA. Click done, hit save. There we go. We've got 2 accounts in this org that are in California. And you can click that funnel icon in the upper right to collapse that. If I click on the upper left here, you can see CA account has now been added to our list of lists. Throughout Salesforce, you can use these list views. Again, I highly recommend you take full advantage of them. They can be quite helpful. That's enough about list views for now. Let's take a closer look at leads. I'm going to switch this into the all open leads list view, and we'll just take a look at one of these. Let's take a look at the Bertha Boxer lead. So you can see that this record has the same functionality as the account record, but we've got some screens in different places. Now, it's my recommendation that you have Salesforce customized so that every record looks the same. I think it's just easier to use, but you'll find in a default org from Salesforce is that some of the records look a bit different, but the functionality is still the same. If we look at the tabs here, we've got a details tab with a bunch of fields about the lead. We've got an activity tab where you can see that activity history, create future tasks, send emails, and we've got a chatter tab as well. And then on the right-hand side, we've got related, any related records to this lead. In this case, the only related records that we're showing are campaign history. It's just the same features, they're just in different spaces. Now, one thing that is a bit different is actually this path across the top. And this is just a visualization of a drop-down field. But what this is a lead status, and it's very commonly used to help you understand where this lead is in your process. Now, remember, a lead precedes accounts, contacts, and opportunities. It's that holding area for unqualified or not yet qualified people that you might want to add to your core database. So when they first come into your Salesforce, they'll probably have a status here of open or new or not contacted, something like that. And you might have a couple statuses that indicate that you're working with them or you're calling them or you're trying to nurture them, trying to get in contact with them. Whenever you do contact them, if they never respond or you get in contact with them and they're just never going to be a good fit for your business, there's usually a status to indicate that as well. In this case, it's closed, not converted. Sometimes it's unqualified or disqualified or not a fit. Anything like that is that kind of stage. So you'll have a status for new, a status for working, a status for unqualified, and then we have a status for qualified. You talk to somebody, they're interested, this might be a deal in the future. And when you come across somebody who's qualified, that's when you want to convert them and add them to your core database. So I'm going to click on Converted, hit Select Converted Status, and this screen pops up to manage your conversion. You've got an account settings, contact settings, and opportunity settings. So really, in one click, you're creating potentially 3 different records. You're creating an account, you're creating a contact, and an opportunity. That's why leads are so useful, because you didn't have to create all 3 of those records yourself. When you first got their business card, you didn't know if it was good or not. Instead, you can just create the one lead record, manage that process, and once they've proven themselves worthy, you can do a little bit more data entry. But even Salesforce helps you with that. So we'll create a new account called Farmers Co-op of Florida, create a new contact. You could change the name here if you want, and we could create a new opportunity too. You can check this box if you don't want to create an opportunity. Maybe they're qualified, but the timing is just not right. In our case, though, we will create that new opportunity. And then on the right-hand side, you also have the option to choose an existing record. So maybe Farmers Co-op of Florida already exists within your system, and you don't want to create a duplicate. You can just select Choose Existing, and you can search for that account. Now, typically, Salesforce is going to find that account for you, but sometimes it misses it, especially if the account name is different. Maybe you have the same company, but they're using 2 different names, and you don't want to create 2 accounts for them. Salesforce isn't going to know that. So you can always manually search here. For example, I could search for Burlington Textiles Corporation. And if I didn't want Bertha Boxer to live underneath the Farmers Co-op of Florida, I could add her underneath Burlington Textiles. So you could create a new record, or you could just add her underneath an existing record. Same thing with contacts. Sometimes you'll add a lead and then realize that that contact already existed within your system, maybe under a different name. Once you're happy with these settings, click Convert. There we go. We've created 3 different records, and I'm going to click through to the opportunity record here. All that activity from the lead is automatically going to flow through to that opportunity. You can see that that contact has been added underneath this opportunity as well, and that the opportunity is related to our brand new account. So an opportunity is a potential deal. Like leads, this is kind of a special record in the system. We've got the status across the top, although on opportunities, it's called a stage. And your values might be different here depending on your sales process. But as you move this opportunity through your sales process, there's a couple things that are happening in the background. If we click on details, you can see any details related to your opportunity, but you can also see what the stage is here, and you can see a probability. So each stage is connected to a probability percentage, which should be set up by your system admin. And this is useful to you because you can use it to help you manage your expected value of opportunities. In the amount field here, let's put in $100,000. Let's say this is potentially a $100,000 deal. We're just in the needs analysis stage, though. We're still pretty early in the process. And typically, opportunities at the needs analysis stage, only 1 out of 5 of them end up becoming customers. So we've got a 20% close rate, a 20% probability at this stage. That means the expected value of that revenue is actually $20,000, not $100K. So if you've got a pipeline with a bunch of different deals that you're managing, and you're paying attention to your quota, and you want to know, do I have enough pipeline to reach that quota? Well, this expected value can be helpful for that. The other features and functions around this record are similar to accounts and leads, which we've already looked at. You've got related records on the right-hand side. You've got this details area. You've got activity where you can add tasks and calls. And then we've got chatter as well to have any conversations about this record or this deal on the record. On the right-hand side, let's talk about a couple special related lists here. One is contact roles. So you might feel that it's not necessary to have a contact when we know this deal is related to Farmers Co-op of Florida. Now, the importance of contact roles, that really depends on your company and the types of deals that you're doing. If you're only ever working with one person at a company, then contact roles aren't as important. But if you're working in complicated sales, or you're working with large companies with lots of people that you're tracking within them, contact roles is critical, because then you can always keep track of who you're talking to in this deal. You can make note of who the decision makers are, who the influencers are. Really critical for those large, complex deals, but also useful if you're working on smaller deals, because you're probably working on a lot more of them. And it's too easy to forget who's involved in what deal, but if you add them here under contact roles, you won't forget. You can click the little down arrow to add a contact role, and you can actually add somebody from any account in the system. It doesn't just have to be the account related to this opportunity. The reason for that is because you might have somebody external to your customer that's influencing the deal. It's a consultant or a partner of theirs or their attorney, something like that. So here I'll just select a role. We'll say that Andy Young is an evaluator. Even though Andy Young belongs to a different company, I can still add him under this opportunity, keep track of both of them and conversations with both of them on this deal. The other related list that's important to pay attention to is products. If your company has a list of set products, you can add them here. Select which product records you'd like to add, choose the quantity, and you can adjust the sales price as well and hit save. Those products get added to the opportunity, and that will update the amount field. If you don't have any products related to your opportunity, then you can edit the amount field yourself and put whatever number you want in there. If you do add products to your opportunity, then you can't edit that number anymore. Instead, amount is calculated automatically for you based off the sales price and the quantity of the related products. When you're working with a prospect and you've gotten to the opportunity stage, there's interest there, they're qualified, recommend you keep as much activity as you can focused on this particular opportunity. This is where you should be spending most of your time, where you should be adding tasks for yourself and for others, adding notes, filling out fields, etc. Let's create a new task here. Call this follow-up on deal. And I'll put a due date for this next week. For the contact, I'm going to add Bertha Boxer and hit save. Okay, we've got one more task here that we'll take a look at in just a second. I'm going to click on the Opportunities tab here. That'll take us back to a list view. Not surprising. But the one thing I wanted to point out here is that there's actually different ways to view this list, and it's particularly useful with opportunities. On the right-hand side, right next to the list view controls we looked at earlier, is this other button, which changes how the list is displayed. The default is table, but you can also switch into Kanban and split view. For salespeople, the Kanban view is particularly useful because you can see all of your deals in their different stages, and you can update them by moving these cards left and right. For example, maybe I just had a great discovery conversation with Grand Hotels, and now I'm trying to identify who the other people within the company are that might be involved in this decision. You can just click on that card, you can drag it over. The totals at the top automatically update. Makes it really easy to visualize your pipeline and to see how many deals are in different stages. The other list view to take a look at is the split view. What this lets you do is keep your list on the left-hand side and load the record on the right. This is what I recommend if you're doing a pipeline review with the sales manager. Or if you've got multiple opportunities that you want to run through quickly without constantly having to reload the screen, this is also useful for that. It loads much faster than clicking into a record and then back to a list and then back into a record. And you can see all of the details, you get all the functionality related to this record without having to go back and forth. Now let's take a look at tasks. So tasks is just another type of record. It defaults to the split view, so you can click between these tasks easily, but you can also change this back into the table view. Personally, I like to work with tasks in a table view because then I get the benefit of being able to edit multiple tasks at the same time, click that pencil, relate them to a contact, etc. And with tasks, you get some additional list views created for you. We'll zoom in here for you. You can see that we've got overdue tasks, delegated tasks, recently completed. These are just list views, like the other ones that we created for accounts and for opportunities, but they're useful for tasks in particular, and you've got them here by default. Delegated tasks is one I like a lot. This is any task record that you've created that's been assigned to somebody else. Makes it really easy to follow up on anybody else's to-dos that you've created. Now let's talk a bit more about email. I showed you how you could send an email from Salesforce, but it's also possible to access Salesforce from within your email. If you're using Gmail or Office 365, there's a Chrome extension for Gmail or a Microsoft add-in for Office 365 that will give you Salesforce in a sidebar here. They're both free, included with your license. And what this sidebar lets you do is it lets you access Salesforce from within your email. You can use the search bar up here to find a record. For example, we were just looking at that farmer's co-op opportunity. I can bring that up and I can edit fields on that opportunity directly from my email. I don't have to switch into Salesforce to, say, update the next step. Maybe I just got an email. Just got an email, proposal coming March 1st. Save. You can also access chatter here. If you need to @mention somebody or respond to a comment, you can access activity, create new tasks, check off tasks as you respond to somebody's email. It's surprising, actually, how much of Salesforce's functionality is accessible within this sidebar. There's a couple other things you can do too, which are going to save you a lot of time. So here's one email that I just received, and I can see that this person does not yet exist within Salesforce. The reason for that is because it says add to Salesforce underneath their email address. This is so much faster than logging into Salesforce, creating a new contact manually. You just click add to Salesforce, and you can choose to create this person as a new contact or a new lead. Let's say I want to make them as a new lead. We'll just say first name's Hay, last name is Einstein, and the company is Rotive. Click save. Now they're in the system. Much faster than going back into Salesforce and doing that data entry, through the main interface. The other thing you can do is you can log emails manually from the sidebar. But if you're using Gmail or Office 365, I would generally recommend you use something called Einstein Activity Capture, which is a feature that you've already got that'll pull in those emails automatically. It just needs to be configured by your admin. If you don't have that configured, you can hit the log email button, and that'll save a copy of this email into your system. The other thing you can do with this is when you're sending a new email. Here I've got a new email composition window. On the right-hand side, I have email templates. Just like before, I can insert a Salesforce email template directly into Gmail. So I'll just grab the support self-service one here. And there we go. That copy has been replaced with that email template. You can also click the down arrow to save the current content in your email as a new template. When you're getting started, you're going to be writing all these emails anyways, might as well click Save as New Template from here, and then you can reuse that in the future, saving you time. And the last thing to take a look at here is the Tasks tab on the right-hand side. This will show you different lists of your tasks, and tasks can be related to almost any record within the system. So this is a good way to consolidate your work. You can create tasks across leads, accounts, contacts, opportunities, whatever your follow-ups are, and from within Gmail or Outlook, you could see those tasks here. Now, of course, there's a lot more that you can do within Salesforce in terms of customization and integrations, and even in the standard CRM, there's lots of different features we didn't even touch on today. But as a salesperson, these are the most important things to keep in mind. Accounts and contacts are your core database. Opportunities are your qualified deals that you want to be working on most of the time. You can use tasks to consolidate the next actions that you have across the entire system. And you can use the plugin for email to quickly add additional contacts, and you can update records directly from within email, where we end up spending a lot of time in sales. I appreciate your time, and I hope you got a lot of value out of this workshop. If you have any questions or comments about this workshop, please let us know. We'd love the feedback. Thanks.